Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Soul Food Poetry Night. I'm Michael Dillon Welch, and together with Tanya McDonald, we are happy to welcome you to the monthly poetry extravaganza here at Soul Food. If you haven't yet signed up on the open mic, it's right down here. It'll be circulating. There's time to sign up at the break. We have not just our two featured readers tonight, but three. And I'm very, very pleased to have them here with us tonight. But to get us started, I would like to begin by reading a poem by A.R. Ammons called Poetics. I look for the way things will turn out spiraling from a center, the shape things will take to come forth in, so that the birch tree, white, touched black at the branches, will stand out, wind glittering, totally its apparent self. I look for the forms things want to come as, from what black wells of possibility, how a thing will unfold. Not the shape on paper, though that too, but the uninterfering means on paper. Not so much looking for the shape as being available to any shape that may be summoning itself through me, from the self, not mine, but ours. That's A.R. Ammons' Poetics. And I just realized I have the wrong bios up here. Our first reader tonight is Molly Tenenbaum, and she is the author of The Cupboard Artist, Floating Bridge. You have copies? Excellent. Now and By a Thread, her other books, as well as several chapbooks. Her honors include a Hedgebrook residency, a 2009 Washington State Artist Trust Fellowship, and a 2013 For Culture grant to collaborate with the artist Ellen Ziegler on a book about ventriloquism. She also plays Appalachian banjo, and I think I spot a banjo in the vicinity here, and also fiddle. I do not spot a fiddle, though. Her CDs are Instead of a Pony and Goose and Gander. She lives in Seattle and has a website at mollytenenbaum.com. So please welcome Molly.
Hello. Oh, I don't even need this tool. Thank you. I thought I'd just play a little banjo in the open mic as an alter ego. And for now, I'll read some poems. That's all right. I don't need that one. Oh, maybe I do. I really picked kind of a random selection of poems. Just kind of, I usually try to go for themes and, you know, to lead you on a whole circle of some kind, and this time we're not going to do that. It's going to be more random. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll end up, we'll be able to figure out what sort of theme I picked without having actually picked one. It's like I asked my students, I think of some crazy thing for them to do, and I don't know what the objectives are, but I ask them afterwards and they figure it out. Okay, so this poem, you would never know it in a million years, but it's about a cat. It sounds like it's about a fish, but it's, you know that feeling of, or maybe you don't, but when a pet of some kind dies, you feel like you see them everywhere. You see their shapes everywhere. And I was thinking about the life of anything, actually, but it happened to be a cat in this case, of inhabiting a certain shape, and that shape being small when they start, and then bigger, and then disappearing. So it really sounds like it's just a fish tank, but there's a secret underlying animal shape. Oval underwater. Started out nose narrow. Didn't know where or what it would go or become. Dipped between rocks. Widened as it went along. Was quick. Could dart to dab. Could retreat from spines and squirts. From cozy caves. Whoops, those walls are teeth. From coils suddenly not quiescent. Shimmered like mirrors. Transparent appendages riffled from the sides and at various angles. In the scene as a whole, much spinning and wafting. Colors banded, pooled. Rapid and slack finning raised ructions from the bottom. Primaries overlapped slow orange moons. Greens and purples exchanged, absorbed, crossed and recrossed, blipping browns and opals. In see-through flesh, the eyes dark dots. Thin bones kept the fins up. With a furrowed gill, a liquid twitch, all in a sluice, all in a quiver, as if seeking half a token. Le WC, la bibliothèque. Closing at the hind end, too, like every rainbowed side. A tail ragged or a ray dragged after, ridging water. Fronds and stalks kept waving. Colors, yes, still pouring. And the one we've been watching, plenty of crannies where it could be hiding. Could have drifted, pulsed, retracted, could have frayed or leapt, could be anywhere now except in the picture. This is my new life, when you make a resolution and you're going to, like, everything's going to be new and fresh and you're going to be a whole new person. And it's kind of, you like to put that off a little bit, my new life. I'll start it after lunch. Maybe staring at the mountain will encourage it. Twinkle of someone's dropped watch in a crack. How dewy, washed, transparent all will be then. How musical, rilling and coursing. And yet all along we were eating buckwheat pancakes every Sunday. I'll start at midnight when the registers reset, checker on break. I'll slip out with eggs in my pocket. I'll start when the white with pink blush peaches come in, when the jam has foamed, when every single pot in the kitchen crusts in the sink, when there's not one more clean plate. When the mail arrives, when both hands hit 12, soon as the kettle boils. After a license plate with an X in it, a graveyard and 2 fields of cows. Exactly when a color no one's seen before dabs straight up in the dawn. When the bourbon roses, cream petals, worn as old underwear, loosen at the hip and drop to the summer-tired grass. Another poem about the new life. This book is kind of all about that new life. Oh, excuse me for being uneven on the microphone. Yet another sun is always at work. My real new life shows through the life I'm in, blushing off orange or tingling after the fork that fell. Nothing I've said of it so far is right, but it will be creamy like unsalted butter. It will know everything, even how to stay crisp on the bottom, how to be cut without fruit sliding out. Will be pie itself, berries bubbling their blue, gluey mouths, gold edges dissolving, and slow like the sun wants to be, but can't, poor sun, who would gaze at the man doing dishes, the woman quiet and reading, would pause in the side yards between the houses, happy and sad in every color. So, I used to wonder when I was young what motivated anybody to wear ugly colors. What I thought of as a kid were ugly colors. I mean, I liked pink, bright green. I think most kids kind of tend to go for those really bright, not necessarily primary, but basic colors, not any of those secondary or I don't know how to talk about colors, thirdary, no mustard, no avocado, none of that. But then later in life, I became really compelled by those colors and wanted to think about that. I mean, seemed like there was really something in them. So, ode to the ugly colors. Hairball beige, rust that spots every single Snapdragon, mustard of 70s telephones. She swore she never would wear these, and why grown-ups did, who could guess, when they could put on all the pink they wanted. At 10, she claimed brown her favorite color, but only brown's not a color to shock little yellows and reds. Or maybe she'd seen maroon velvet, even then felt the blush of cocoa powder. Iris, iridescent, you were lovely, color the crescent moon might flash if she fluttered a wing, glimpse of her Aunt Eva's silk sheath, shadow the black-haired girls caked on in the junior high bathroom and came out looking, the principal said, like sluts, but she loved their necklines of peacock acrylic, their idea of brushing blue anywhere. Sings to you now, blotchy green, underside of a sunflower leaf that will be completely dead tomorrow. Sings to you, burnt buttermilk, all a cataract sees. Sings to you, gray, porous linoleum tracked with wet weather, and to you, white glare, tabletop clotted with cup rings. She wears green of cow dung, tan of an old dry gourd, color of mildew of grated potatoes, color of grunt, harumph, and husk, the old lips of yogurt, the lost cottage cheese, scrape and caw a dinged aluminum pot, the granite color of color bands, the chicken fat color of sleep scum, mud of her eyes. Ugly colors, she sings, you have the most beautiful names. Dove gray, olive, dusky rose, murrey, claret, bloodstain, myrtle, mauve, russet, mahogany, buff, sallow, ginger, pockmark, nacre, birch bark, mica, sandstone, moss. You are soft as the cotton sheet in the mending basket. You are the damp cloth fever heats through every 5 minutes. When you wrap around a person, when she pulls you tighter, heavy weight of wool in winter, she feels a tug in her heart, cuticle detaching, claw caught in a sweater, unsealing of a leaf before it falls. Here's one about tea. Brewing green tea in a glass percolator after the regular brown teapot has broken. So you have to picture green tea leaves brewing in a glass container and then you have to compare that to a different kind of brewing tea in a teapot where you can't see inside it. So there's the setup, but there's no punchline. These leaves don't spin like black tea in a dark tornado, but swing light as dragonfly wings. Though you wouldn't want dragonfly wings in your tea, a loud amount of rat droppings and cornflakes. But that transparency, that iridescence, wings clearly with their dark, tiny veins. To start with a pot of floating greenery says the right thing about the day, I think, that no one knows what will happen. But everything swirls, expands in heat, and floating falls. In this case, can't fall all the way in a timed 1 minute before being stopped by the strainer from entering the cup. 3 steepings, the tea man said, I could squeeze from the leaves, and it's true if you don't mind tea weaker and weaker. Radio waves from the mother ship, thinning, fading, you alone on the new planet, nothing to do but start civilization over. Maybe you'll do it your way this time. Maybe you'll see what your way is. Maybe a system will be developed a little like the system we have here, where after the last faint steep, I tap the strainer upside down on the compost, on top of yesterday's kale, already stinking to high heaven. I have to read the ending again, but I'll wait a second. It's all right. You probably heard the ending all right, but I wasn't satisfied. That poem, I don't know if I had this in mind when I was writing it, but now that I read it, it reminds me a little bit of Little Bear. You know, the book, I don't remember. Oh, Elsa Minerick. You know, the children's book that Maurice Sendak illustrated. And there's the one, Little Bear Goes to the Moon, and he puts on a little, box on his head with little tinfoil things. And then his mother helps him pretend he's going to the moon, but then the moon is just like home. He jumps out of a tree and he goes, oh, it's just like, anyway. So you alone on the new planet, nothing to do but start civilization over. Maybe you'll do it your way this time. Maybe you'll see what your way is. Maybe a system will be developed a little like the system we have here, where after the last faint steep, I tap the strainer upside down on the compost, on top of yesterday's kale, already stinking to high heaven. Just a couple more. So I've been thinking, it's so funny, I haven't really been able to write poems lately somehow, but I've been able to write poems about not being able to write poems, which is the old school trick. If you can't write your paper, you write a paper about how you couldn't write your paper, and then your English teacher says, excuse me, I've seen this before, go write a real paper. So, I'm sitting there trying to write a poem, and I say to myself, this poem needs a hummingbird. This poem needs a hummingbird, needs a whirring bright and a quick sharp, right here, a fist of hunger, here, golden neon, needs something small, 80 times a second, a blur that flies backwards, a shimmer at once, both green and vermilion. Needs what may be desperation, can't tell by looking, maybe color and sugar. From the beginning needs something continuously starving to death, Please, a glow here and here, a nest of fine spider hair. Needs a dip, a bead, repeated prickings, a series of clicks by which like can find like. Needs something, something, a thing that moves. A departure at the end of summer, and one here remaining all winter. A burr in the air, a flame, a little light, something going, going, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all over. Needs a species I can't read and its entire survival kit. A sky, a plume, puckering red dragon lips, needs a beak that fits. Needs what I haven't invented. Please, needs leaving alone, needs pure food in a thin enough mixture, needs something almost transparent right here that you see and I don't. You calling, come quick, while I'm in the bathroom endlessly spitting and brushing. I'll read one more. Actually, it's a series of 2 short ones, but you can think of it as one if you like. Toiletry diptych. How do you say that word? Diptych. You know, 2 things. Toiletries. Apricot lipstick. We waited in the car while Mom in the house applied it. When the middle filled up to the edge of the outline painted with a tiny brush, we were off. That was short, so I'll read it again. Apricot lipstick. We waited in the car while Mom in the house applied it. When the middle filled up to the edge of the outline painted with a tiny brush, we were off. And then late in life, I have come to hair products. Thank you all for coming, and let's all look forward to the remaining poets for this evening. And thanks to Michael for organizing. And Tanya. Late in life, I have come to hair products. For volume and lift, for shine and body, for weightless moisture, for definition, for gloss. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Next up, we have T. Clear. And she grew up in the rural wilds of East King County, which might be Redmond, but it's probably further east. Further east. In the company of nettles and fiddlehead ferns, where as a child she spent many an hour in the uppermost branches of a big leaf maple, singing hymns. Her work has appeared in many magazines, including Poetry Northwest, Atlanta Review, Slipstream, Seattle Review, and Cascadia Review. Her first full-length collection, Dusk, is forthcoming from Floating Bridge Press. When is that due? Okay, no date yet. She currently manages the production and shipping of a glass art business in her southeast Seattle neighborhood. Please welcome T. Clear.
Tonight was the first time I've been back to Redmond since a marriage ended 2.5 years ago. I was only here for 3 years, but it was really strange driving across the bridge, coming down here. So I had to open with this poem to kind of purge myself of weirdness surrounding that. It's called My Deterrent Example, with an epigraph by William Stafford. And following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. I followed the wrong God home, or was it the wrong dog? I panted after his wagging tail. Dog or God didn't matter. Dumbstruck, smitten, led on by his trickster charms. All it got me was trouble and highbrow kibble, pricey vodka at the bar, vacations that verged on paradise, doubled for a time as real life. But it wasn't in my nature, after all, to worship either canine or divine. His altars and icons belonged to no heaven I could trust beyond our abbreviated marriage, its disillusion, its dissolution. Oh, my fraudulent idol, my expired deity, all your coffers rattle empty now. Your gold is a crumpled tin scrap dumped out at love's dead end. Not home, not sweet, no God, you, and undeniably wrong. Oh, God, that felt good. I grew up Catholic, and I'm a non-theist now, but Catholicism is a wonderful source of, for me, of ritual and imagery, icons, etc. And I have a series of poems with Our Lady of, fill in the blank. I'm going to read 2 of them tonight. Supplication to Our Lady of the Dumpster. O lid of clang and wheels of clatter, O collector of rubbish and swill, O holy mother of great pickings of dreck and slop, hear our prayer. O saint of litter and scrap, protect us from the banana peel, the styrofoam chunk, from all that defies reduce, reuse, recycle. O divine casting off, O sacred decay, hallelujah to the hefty Ultraflex 33-gallon, the drawstring, the twist tie. You hold dear everything everyone never wanted, or wanted once, a sack or a heap, tossed and tumbled. Praise to those who dive into the belly of your dump, the urban foragers, the hungry, scraping a meal of crust and bone. Consecrate them, O Queen of rubble robed in graffiti. Watch over them that they may not themselves become waste, to be managed. A cubic yard of flesh primed for front-loading, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And this is Our Lady of Needle and Thread. Adores a button, a rustle through organza, hooks and eyes, eyelet, readily punctures a pinch of flannel, a gathering of gingham. Fussy about Georgette, the slip of satin under the pressure foot, snaps when cross, yet stitches up devotions like rickrack, zip zip. O pure heart of notions, O bobbin spinner and thimble fitter, save us from the rent seam, the bound buttonhole, O muslin humble mother, O gusseted miracle of ruffle and selvage who rips bad basting, secures a pleat, grants ease to the pattern snipper. May goodness follow each cut on the bias, may plaids match and stripes run on every grain evenly woven. Amen to the frayed edge, a hem to blindly fasten, herringbone, feather, lazy daisy, whipped, a prickler for details, the knot end of the thread. I have 2 poems here. I was going to read about a different husband, but I'm just going to read one. After long waiting, I surrendered the fabric bits of you to the 99-cent bin at Goodwill. T-shirt, socks, mismatched or not. No rush to vacate the closet. What could have taken an afternoon eased into months, this slow letting out of your seams, my unraveling. Imagine meeting a stranger wearing the blue wool sweater I wrapped for you that last Christmas. What would I say to him? What words could possibly make sense? Your shoes were last to go, as if somehow you might return and step back into your life. I kept them paired beside the bed for the silent comfort they offered while I slept on both sides of the mattress, and then they too were gone. Yet I suspect a single boot remains under the basement workbench, the left foot, laces undone. It's been 10 years. You're late. This is a found poem. I opened up one of my cupboards in my kitchen and I had all the material I needed. Kitchen mischief. Best when used by, rich and creamy, extra virgin, those with sweet flavors, double acting, will perk up, only cold water should be used. Add hot juice, beat, bring to a boil, as desired, grease lightly until completely dissolved, shake well, may explode if heated. A pinch or two gives zest to, adds pungency, fast, rising, and active. Questions? Comments? Do not use delay timer. Need, let double in size. Even the most delicate, most unadulterated, raw and real honey. I didn't add a single word that wasn't on a label. Oh, I'm pruning poems out of here. Okay. The poem Who Drank Too Much. Too many nights in the margins of gin, and he blanked out, rhyme and reason shaken, his marriage on the rocks. The wife wanted out of the couplet, threatened a stanza break. He buried his dissonance in rum, jiggered his diction, but there was trouble in parody. You used to have such a beautiful simile, the wife said. You're always feeding me the same line, he said. We don't have syntax anymore, she said. I'm averse to abstinence, he said. She left him for a novel. He mixed his metaphors with vodka. His tone grew flat, his liver stressed. No longer the stirring ode. The poem Who Drank Too Much nursed a swollen foot, became a hack, had his license revoked for writing under the influence, lived out his sentence as a cliche scribbled on a brown paper sack. Ooh, a couple more. Providence. Some days roll hard, a choke collar of thorns embedded in the wheels, gravel spitting out like gunshot in every direction, never an easy downhill glide. Some days meet you at dawn with a fist in the face before you put one foot to the floor, a smack right back down on your flat-out aching spine, no one to lift you up but your own fractured self, and even then, not enough. And then out of the blue twilight, a stranger opens his front door in full-blown tenor operatic riff. You're only walking by on your way to nowhere that matters when the singing stops and all of 5 or 6 seconds of your life has passed. In that too brief moment of an afternoon, in those few steps on cracked concrete, your entire world becomes something new, heard through a measure of song you'll not hear again if you walk 1,000 times down this same street. Some days give up their secrets, yes, but you must keep your eyes open, your ears tuned for that elusive key that drops like a broken-winged angel from a cloud. Take hold, do your unlocking while there's still time. Okay, 2 more. How to burn an ex-lover's poems. Gut each sentence, clause by clause. Make a tidy pile of stanzas. Be sure to include punctuation. Nothing burns faster than an exclamation point. Be quick about it. Don't forget the metaphors, the sizzling symbolism, every double entendre that once shot lightning through your brainstem and thundered the fist of your heart, rendered you gasping. Get on with it. Twist each fragment into corkscrew strips. Build a stack, a heap, an epic. Light the blowtorch. Bellow the flames as they grow from an orange curl to the roar these words won't voice again. And then it's over. There's no reconstruction from these ashes, no last lingering cinder to ignite, not an ember in the seared truth of the next day and the next. The smoke, though, you'll smell for weeks or months. It's not as easy as you think. Oh, this is my last poem. Very small introduction. I was in Ireland walking up a hillside I've been trying to find a path to for a long time. And found it finally, and it was at dusk, where the sun was just setting, and it was one of those moments of clarity, of a time when everything seems perfect, when every path seems right, and those times don't come often enough in life, I don't think, but this was one of them. Golden hour. I found a new way up a steep slope, a rusty gate that opened with a simple untangle of rope. A quick clamber from sea level to the thistled ridge, ankle deep in grasses whose names I wished I knew. And all along that ridge from every direction, gulls and swallows and starlings in a shimmering swoop and dive. I scuttled under barbs, amazed at the efficiency of the crouch, the roll, and no rips, not one. And down I rambled on the other side, nearly hip-high in bracken, thickets of gorse. I followed no path and left scant trail. And happiness rippled up in me, plain and unadorned, the kind of happiness for which there is no accounting. Looped back to the gabled house across the tide flats of Clew Bay, slipping on sea kelp on Carrageen, and no urgency to know who possessed the barbed wire I ducked beneath, in whose unknown meadow I whistled. Thank you.
Thank you, T. We have a bonus reader tonight, and that is Peter Ludwin, and his new book is Rumors of Fallible Gods, which he has available down here. Peter Ludwin has been active in the arts scene as a poet and folk musician. For the past 11 years, this is a good gig, he has been a participant in the San Miguel Poetry Week in De Allende, Mexico. Am I saying that right? Oh, sorry, did I miss a word? Yeah. Okay. In 2007, he received a literary fellowship from Artists Trust, and he was the 2007 and 2008 second prize winner of the Anna Davidson Rosenberg Awards, a finalist for 2010 and 2011 Gival Press Poetry Award, and received special merit recognition in the 2011 Muriel Craft Bailey Memorial Award Competition. He has been a Pushcart Prize nominee as well, and a featured reader for the Distinguished Writer Series in Tacoma. And active with the pardon me if I can't read it in the light here. In the John Milton Writers Conference in South Dakota, the Whittier College in Los Angeles, and he studied under noted poets such as Mark Doty, Tony Hoagland, and C.K. Williams. His poetry has appeared in many journals, and locally and farther afield. And his poetry is influenced by American folk music, the natural world, and the dynamics between the old world and new world perceptions. Please welcome Peter Ludwin.
Well, thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here. It's a bonus for me to see Michael Spence again. And I'm just going to weave through a couple of poems each from my two books and then from two other manuscripts, which I've been working on the last couple of years. And I'll start with one of those manuscripts. One of my favorite periods of my life is the early 1970s, and this poem stems from that era. It's called Planting Trees, Seattle. On Fairview and Market and down in Rainier Valley, we swung our picks that winter, sleet lacerating our faces, our hands. Blacks, Chicanos, hippies and Indians, convicts larking on work release. Social outcasts all, digging wet, frigid holes with numbed fingers. Our ponchos, angry crows that flapped and squawked, danced and shook in the wind. It was a crew to love, that bunch. Gemini and Skinny Jim and John the Baha'i, who played Hoochie Coochie Man on guitar. And always, no matter how foul the weather, Pablo the Puerto Rican told crude locker room jokes some had outgrown in junior high. Taking whatever the storms threw at us, we only quit the day an avenging blast wrenched the hard hats from our heads and blew them far up the road. That was 40 years ago. I cannot drive by those trees much larger now, without the ghostly shapes of that crew mottling the trunks like errant wisps of fog, without a grinning, spaced-out Lamar bursting from a mock birthday cake somewhere on Capitol Hill, or Skinny Jim twirling his beads on the post office wall, while my jug band cranks out tunes at a local street fair. Locked into the carefree early 70s, before punk and disco engraved the headstone for the 60s. The job lasted just a few months, the last gig coming on 45th and Wallingford, when the sight of me stepping off an engineering department truck wearing a Moroccan jalaba with my hard hat drew laughs and stares. The crew scattered into oblivion. They remain what they were, frozen in a languid pose, the way a farewell photograph of classmates shipping off to war captures shadow. Smiles that belie the charnel house, the graceless seating of bones. And one of the projects I've worked on the last couple of years is a chapbook manuscript. It's the only manuscript or book that I've done that has, right from the beginning, had a specific theme that I was conscious of. And it revolves around this horrific incident in 1887 when over 30 Chinese gold miners were murdered by a gang of horse thieves in Hell's Canyon. And so one of the poems that resulted from this and from doing some research into the lives of the Chinese in the American West in the latter part of the 19th century is this poem, which has the longest title and is the shortest poem that I've ever written. The title is What Marjorie Fong Told Caucasians at the Qingming Festival when they asked if bodies came out of the ground to eat food left for departed relatives. And the poem. Do your people come up and smell the flowers? 23 years ago, I spent 7 weeks in Ecuador and Peru, and this is one of the poems that derived from that trip. It's called First Night Ecuadorian Amazon. Indians, their voices a murmur of smoke, prepare for sleep. Eco-tourists follow their lead. A heavy rain spatters the broad leaves of banana trees in the clearing, hisses in blackness like steam. Something within me is dying so that something else, streaked with chlorophyll and water, may be born. I rock in my hammock, attended by jaguars who recite Garcia Lorca. All the jungle is a prayer. Only the monkeys shouting from the forest canopy disregard this music, pelting one another with dung-smeared copies of Time magazine. They argue all along the slick, wet saddle of night. And this is a poem for a friend of mine. It's called Breakfast in Baja. Restaurant Jalisco, the sign read, a 2-room adobe hovel sticking up like a wart from the desert floor. No, you said, it's too funky. We'll get something nobody's got a cure for. But we went in anyway to the little patio with its lone table covered with sand, which the old man's wife swept away with her hand before she took our order. You didn't want anything, but she misunderstood and brought out 2 plates of eggs and beans and tortillas, which we had to eat or insult them and slink away like whipped dogs. And you grudgingly conceded how good it was while she kept bringing more plates of tortillas without us saying a word, and avocados. And chickens ran by from the garden, and 3 kids kept trying to get the radio to work by beating on it with a hammer. And the old man went about his chores hauling buckets of water back and forth, the 2 meals coming to about $1.75. Do you remember, my friend, how that breakfast lasted all the way to San Felipe, where the pelicans flocked to greet us? In 2004, I spent a weekend at a writing conference in Taos in New Mexico, and when I left there, I was looking at my road atlas to see what kind of interesting off the beaten track route I could take back home up here. And I had just, before I came down to Taos, I had just finished reading John Krakauer's book, Under the Banner of Heaven, and in which, among other things, he describes this outlaw, excommunicated, polygamist community in a very remote area in the northwest corner of Arizona called Short Creek. And I realized that I could actually go right through there. So this poem derives from that. It's called Among the Fundamentalists at Short Creek. Silence out of tune with community hangs like smoke in the air, menaces the timid bird. The earth itself now a secret withheld from the mirror, a patient quarantined from plague that steals among the hedges. Women and girls in ankle-length dresses, hair swept back and braided, move shroud-like through the dairy store. Lazarus lies within, and no one has been found to roll away the stone. In perfect obedience, the patriarch insists, lies freedom. Rows of the honeycombed heart gnawed through by bark beetles. A girl of 14 turns down a dead-end chamber trapped by an elder with 3 wives. And wherever the contaminated other goes, eyes of tarnished metal follow. Outlaw young know their duty, like their fathers, to circle the wagons under Vermilion cliffs, to man the barricades against unbelievers, against the ripe, blossoming world. It's another poem from a Northwest manuscript that I've just basically wrapped up. It's called Misty Fjords, Southeast Alaska. And Misty Fjords is a national monument that lies east of Ketchikan. Like a sailor's supplication, the mud-smeared chain rose from 20 fathoms down. The anchor's rusted flukes angled toward their niche beneath the bow. But the gearbox couldn't hold. With a lurch, over half a ton of anchor, chain, and cable screamed its bleak song, Mike's boot smoking with failure. He pulled it off just before the cable would have gouged his foot to the bone. We watched it snap and disappear, unsure our eyes had told the truth. Out here, a boat lacking heavy metal was a drifting mine. We gathered the shrimp and crab we'd lured to our baited traps. No sign of bear beyond the vision that drove us to scan the shoreline as the day before we'd searched for whales. Down a finger far back in the wilderness, Mike found a dock the float planes used where we could tie up, secure for the night. From anchor to wolf tracks we'd spotted along a riverbank that afternoon, we breathed the transformative code of this country, one the winched and gutted halibut Mike caught near evening, blood pooling on the deck below its dangling, inert form, new in its own brute way. Amid an untamed bounty, we traced the language of loss, foraged for syllables, half-whispered, of the beast's racing heart. And I'll just do two more. This is a childhood poem about imagination. It's called Cherry Tree. There was something about the sound of that branch in a storm, how it lashed the window as rain blurred and streaked the glass. An insistence, bees swarming a meadow, a blood song hummed like wire at the temples. And what could fire a boy more in the womb of such fierce crackling, the wounded agony of air, than to read of capricious gods while they let the furies from their tether, to cut loose like a bull rider down pages of story and myth. This branch was an omen I believed, as when men of old in their anguish cried out, "Lord, give me a sign." Water could pour from rock, rods changed to snakes and back to rods again. Words as cut stones mortared into apse and nave, transept and pillar. The vaulted dome of imagination, one's private cathedral that never reared the same face twice. And I'll finish with a poem called Rachel Expelled from Valencia, 1492. Most people think of 1492 as the year that Columbus stumbled into the Bahamas. But it was also the year that the Jews were expelled from Spain, who were to be followed a few years later by the Muslims. So this is written as a persona poem in the voice of a woman at that time. When the edict was read, I became shadow skirting the plaza, a dark speck upon the sun. Let me tell you, the torture of flesh is an old story. One goes unconscious and it ends, but the wild dog let loose on the mind hourly savages his bone. Because choice rattles its empty cup, Because light blasphemes blackened windows, the reproach of the mirror solders my dry mouth shut. At dawn, I lurch through quicksand with my basket of eggs, a lopped limb growing back each night. Oh, I am the musky witch whose breasts spill sour wine, a dead leaf falling, solar and lunar eclipse. Look for the goat herd in Edom, the sandy wastes of the Philistines, without rights, without compass. Gideon has fled with his 300, and there are none to sound her name. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. We'll take a short break in a moment, but a couple of announcements first. One is some personal announcement, and that is that effective earlier this month, I'm the new Poet Laureate for the City of Redmond. And I have poetry bookmarks that are outlining some of the events I have coming up, and I'll just mention a couple of those. One is a series of readings at the Redmond Library called Wanted, Dead or Alive, and it features dead poets to celebrate their work. And the first featured poet is E.E. Cummings, and that will be on October 30, and that's a Wednesday night, so please come for that. If you have a favorite E.E. Cummings poem or one that just puzzles you, come and read it, talk about it. It'll be mostly a sharing time for reading the poems, and we can also talk about them. And if you have poems written in the style of E.E. Cummings that you could read or show, as the case may be, that's welcome too. So that's one event coming up, and every 3 months there'll be a different dead poet featured, and also coming up are Emily Dickinson, Rumi, and Pablo Neruda. So that's something to look forward to. And next summer I'll be leading monthly outdoor poetry walks. We'll be writing while walking in Redmond city parks. And the big thing is I'm going to revive the Poets in the Park conference, which I had done here in the city 10 and 9 years ago. And we'll bring it back, and we'll have 2 full days of poetry readings and workshops and panel discussions, a book fair, lots of fun things. And we had almost 100 people come to it when I did it before, and hopefully we can top that. And that'll be in April, late April, the last weekend of April in next year. And one other thing that I've done, and I'll just show this to you, is I've created a series of Poem of the Week posters. And if you're interested in displaying these at school or at a place of business, or if you have some creative way to put this up, you can request a set from me, and Soul Food has them up in the window here, and I'm grateful for that. And they're also up at the library, at the Vala Art Gallery. City Hall is going to put them up, and a couple of other places are in the works. And there's one different poem each time, so there's one of them, if you can read it. And speaking of the Vala Art Gallery over in the Redmond Town Center, tomorrow night, this is unrelated to the Poet Laureate business, but earlier this summer I edited Here, There, and Everywhere, poetry anthology for the Redmond Association of Spoken Word, and RASP is having a reading from the book tomorrow night at the Vala Art Center. So if you want more information about that, please let me know. We had about 85 people at the book launch back in April. The book has 140 poems by 70 different poets, and they're arranged in the categories of here, there, and everywhere. But wait, there's more. I also would like to announce the readers for the next Soul Food Poetry Night, which is November 21, and that will be Janae Bauer and Ann Spires. So please come for that. Anyone else have any announcements they'd like to share? The okay. I'm mixing up dates here. That's yeah. I'm not. I wasn't even aware of. I'm thinking of the reader for RASP this month, which I've forgotten who it is. Yeah, and that's a week from tomorrow, I think. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I can announce that. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and we have a sign-up sheet for the open mic. It's right down here, and please sign up if you haven't already. But let's take a break. Thank you.